We are live. Let's get ready to podcast.
Fire it up.
Welcome back to another live and amplified Indie Fusion podcast. I'm your host, Tom Quat. We are back at it again with another amazing podcast. Today, we have a very special guest joining us. We have Piper Leone. How's it going today?
It's great. Thank you so much for having me.
Absolutely. I'm excited to sit down and chat with you. I was so eager. In fact, I was sitting here at 4:00 my time, and then I realized because I tried to log into Zoom and the Zoom link wasn't active yet. And I'm like, wait, what's going on here? Why is my Zoom link not active? And then I looked at the schedule and I was like, oh,
that's
4:00 Pacific time. That's right. And so I was like, okay, well, I'm going to go back to sleep then. So,
fair enough. Yeah. Good use nap. That's
right. Yeah, it's one of those things where it's like on the weekend, I just like to nap. It's worth it, to be honest with you. So.
Oh yeah. Where are you again? You're in.
So I'm in Waco, Texas.
Okay. Cool.
Yeah, and you're out in California, LA. I'm glad you weren't affected too badly by the fires. I've seen a lot of friends go through a lot of things out there. So.
Yeah. I've been very lucky. Way too many people have not been.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. So first off, I do want to congratulate you on your new single. About 48. It's been out for about 48 hours, or a little bit over.
Yeah, around. Yeah, let's see. A little bit over. Yeah, something like that. Yeah.
So how's it feel to have a new single out in the world?
Oh, it feels good. I mean, I hadn't had a new song out in over a year. Mm-hmm. So it was just, I've been working on a lot of the behind the scenes stuff and writing this past year. So it feels good to have something new out that feels more like up to date with me now, instead of just the stuff that I put out. It feels like ages ago. So yeah.
Sure. So the gap in release, was that intentional, or was it just like, oh, we're working on other things. Oh, wait, I haven't released music in a little bit. Maybe we need to fix that.
It was kind of just like, I've sort of always been sort of treated my own like creativity and sharing that, I guess, in a way that like, I never wanted to put something out and like ask people to like it when I didn't like it yet, And so I think this past year, past decade and more, but like this past year, especially, I've been, sort of honing in on a lot of just like what I wanted to do artistically, just like writing a lot more songs and just sort of becoming a better musician. I've been, playing music with some great musicians, and it's made me a lot better at what I do. And so I've just kind of been focusing on that and deciding what I wanted to do and how I wanted to do it before actually trying to go about doing it, rather than just taking a shot in the dark. So
fair. Perfect. Yeah. Trying to be a little bit more calculated with it. Right?
Well, I'd like to think intentional, maybe, but
okay, there you go. That works better. That's on.
Yeah. I think, it's like I always sort of feel like, in terms of sharing music, like you can either sort of shoot from the hip and it like comes across however it ends up coming across, which might not be true to you or your music, or you can like sort of, to me, it's like taking the time to get to know myself and, and my own writing and voice and stuff, and trying to be aware of how I'm sharing what I'm sharing.
Fair. Yeah. Very fair. And so throughout this last year or so, have you still been out like playing music, or has it pretty much just been writing and kind of jamming with friends?
I've been playing a lot more shows this past year. So I actually, for a long time, I wasn't playing live at all. I started writing songs when I was 10 or 11,
Hmm.
in like a serious way and like wanting to do it, you know? And I wasn't very good at it at that point for sure. I didn't write a song I actually liked until I was like 19, um, but you know, I, and I played a little bit when I was a kid, but then I focused on sports in high school and the beginning of college, and I was still writing, but I wasn't really playing out or anything. And um, in in the beginning of college, like right during the beginning of COVID, I ended up having an injury that put me out of college athletics, and so then I that was when I like was spending all my time on music again. But COVID was, so I wasn't playing live or anything
Hmm.
at that point. So it was kind of just like only in the past couple of years I've started playing live again more. But yeah.
For sure. The COVID era is what I'm going to call it. Just
Mhm.
it forced people to kind of really realize what it is they enjoyed to do. And I think that's what's spawning a lot of these
Yeah.
musicians to kind of come out because they realize, like, oh, this all could go away in an instant.
Yeah.
I need to go after my dreams. And I think in your
Yeah.
case, you were kind of forced it to a certain degree after, or like once you got injured and was kind of forced out of college athletics. Before we go too deep, what did you play in college?
In college, I was on the rowing team.
Okay.
So yeah, yeah, that was, I mean, in total, I only rowed for 3 years, I guess, because
Hmm.
I started my junior year of high school, but that was what I did in college.
Okay.
Yeah,
Gotcha. Yeah.
other sports when I was younger, but yeah.
Sweet. So you were kind of forced out of rowing and it just happened to kind of coincide with COVID. And
Yeah,
so it was
pretty
just kind
much.
of,
Pretty much. It was, yeah, it was funny. It was like COVID, no more rowing. And then I also went through kind of a gnarly breakup at the same time. So it was just like everything that I had like sort of shaped my life around for, the past couple years before that. It was like, oh, who am I and what do I actually want without these things that were sort of just like keeping me, you
mhm.
know,
Yeah.
that I was building my life around. But yeah.
Right. And at this point, were you still up in Northern California or were you down in LA at this point?
I was in LA. So
Okay.
I ended up coming back to stay with my mom. She lives in Sacramento. And so well, actually, I guess I spent some time both there and with my dad who lives in Tahoe. So I just was I spent a few months then up there and yeah, and then came back to LA. Um, and yeah, just kind of spent a whole lot of time by myself. But yeah, it was good. Yeah.
Did that time by yourself for like, was that kind of when you really started to hone your songwriting and just kind of like really get into that, or was that kind of, yeah? I guess that's the best way to ask that question.
I would say it's when I finally got to the point where I was like, okay, I feel like I've done this enough that I'm like actually developing some, like that was when I first started writing songs I actually liked.
Yeah.
I had always been working really hard on it when I was, when I first started songwriting. I'm very much like the type to like jump into something and be like, oh, this is like, I'm just gonna 100% go into this. And like, that's what I did when I was in middle school and like was just like studying the songs I loved and, trying to write those same songs, which obviously never works. Um, but yeah, I would say at that point, in 2020, 2021, was when I sort of started to figure out, my own voice. And obviously that's always evolving, but
Mhm.
yeah, yeah.
Yeah. Nice. That's really cool. And so during that kind of process, who were you kind of listening to musically speaking? Like, who were you trying to, I don't want to say model yourself after because it sounds
Mhm.
like, but like, who were you listening to? Like, where were you pulling your inspirations from?
Well, it's funny because at that point, it was sort of shifting a lot because I was trying to figure out, when I had first started writing songs, I was, in middle school and I was like, I loved Taylor Swift, like her early stuff. That was like a big, I kind of learned how to write a song from her,
Mhm.
and just like studying her music. But I would say also then, around then was when I started listening to Eric Church. And so I very much, I would say in a grander scheme, he's probably a bigger influence on me
Mhm.
um, than possibly anybody else as a songwriter. But so I would say his influence was probably a through line throughout that. But, I was also kind of going back to, some of the music that I grew up on that my parents loved, like Willie Nelson, Bonnie Raitt, my grandma loved George Strait. So, and just sort of getting back into some of the 90s country that I'd always loved. And but I also was like taking some detours into like, some pop stuff that I was like, ooh, let's just like try to learn how to produce something like this that's super poppy, like in my bedroom. And like, I learned how to do a little bit of production and, did
Mhm.
some of that in my room and just kind of just explored a lot. It was,
Yeah,
a lot of different stuff, but yeah.
I feel that. So there was never at any point a chance of you doing like a complete left turn and doing like a pop album or something a little bit not country related, I guess.
I would say there was probably like maybe a month where I just like I had like a phase where I decided that I was gonna that I was gonna like buy some purple shampoo and like just like leave it in for too long and like turn my hair kind of lavender and like make a pop album. And like that was like a weird like post breakup COVID
Mm.
in my house by myself kind of a moment where I had like briefly was like, yeah, I'm going to do that. But that didn't last very long. It was just kind of like that was never really aligned with me. That was just kind of a, you know,
Like
trying
a
something on kind of a thing. Yeah.
like a little rebellious moment in your life of
Yeah. Yeah. I wasn't, a very difficult. Well, actually that's probably not fair, but I wasn't like a super rebellious teenager. So yeah, I just like kind of did that right then.
you know what though? I think at that point in your life, that would have been the time to try something. Like just like go full left turn and be like, hey,
Yeah,
even if you wanted to go like, I don't know, drop like a rock album, like I don't know, just something like really random. I'm always a
that would
huge
be that would be closer to probably feasible for me. But I do have some like I have like a song that I had made at that point when it was just like it was very sort of like Billie Eilish influenced, and like there's some songs that are like if I were to look back at them now and listen to them, I'd be like, oh my god, who was that who made that? Like that's really interesting, but
right.
yeah,
I mean, I've got some video content like that. Like I've purged from the internet, but it or
yeah,
purged from the internet, but
yeah,
it's like I go back and watch it and be like, all right, I was on something or on
yeah.
one that day. So,
Yeah, yeah. Sometimes you just need to like try it, and then be
right.
like, oh wait, that was cool, but that's not me, I
Mhm.
mean, that was a phase when I was still kind of figuring out the difference between liking something and admiring it and
Mhm.
enjoying like consuming it as a listener versus, oh, that aligns with me and like who
Mhm.
I am and who like what I want to make. That's like I think that's sort of a something that just like in general in your like teenage years and like, maybe into like your early 20s, that's sort of a I say that as if I'm not still in my early 20s, I'm 24, but like, when you're like kind of fresh out of high school, oh gosh, I'm so sorry about that. A piece of my chair just fell off.
Oh.
But yeah, just like not understanding the difference between liking something and like wanting to have that be part of you.
Mhm.
That
Yeah.
was definitely a lesson I was learning at that point.
Nice. That's cool. So it was, and then in 2023, that's when you kind of started re- recording and releasing music, or was there a phase a little bit earlier that just kind of isn't up on Spotify?
Yeah, so that was when I first started releasing music. There's kind of like, I guess there's sort of a period in there in that point that I haven't mentioned, which is that I actually had to get double jaw surgery
Oh.
in the beginning of 2023,
Mhm.
January 2023, I think. Yeah, it's been 2 years. And so there was like a six, and leading up to that, that was kind of my life was revolving around that. And so there was like a 6 month period after that where like several months of that I was just in bed, like on pain meds, like, not doing anything and like couldn't sing definitely for a while. I couldn't even talk for a little while. So that was I was definitely not recording then, but it was kind of around, I want to say like May or June of 2023 that I started going in and like recording some stuff um and then yeah, put a couple of those songs out in fall of 2023. So
Gotcha.
yeah, no, there aren't any things that I like released before that were just like that I like scrubbed from the
Fair.
yeah.
I have to ask anymore because it's becoming so commonplace where people are just kind of purging stuff from the internet, like musically speaking, because, oh, well, I was 17 when I wrote this. It doesn't really
Yeah.
reflect what I do. And it's like, so it gets to a point now where
Yeah.
I just ask. So,
Yeah. I think I never really like those kinds of things. I always was kind of aware that it was not going to align with me in the future. And so
mm,
I just didn't put it out.
mm,
I kind of felt like I was like, this is not really the version of me as a person or as an artist that I want to be. And it was like, I kind of just waited to
mm,
share that until I felt like I was closer to that. And of course, now I look back at those songs and I'm like, like I definitely, there's some things that I'm like, especially just like my vocals. I like look back on the songs that I recorded then and I'm like, God, what was I doing? Like,
right. I mean, you're gonna do that in any
yeah.
career field or
Yeah.
creative outlet you do. So, like,
Oh,
I mean,
yeah, totally.
just kind of own it. Oh, the one thing I did want to ask though, before we move on to your new single that's out now, do you have any like long-lasting effects from your jaw surgery? Like, is it still kind of a thing you have to be concerned about to this day, or?
Basically it fixed the issues that it needed to fix. And it's like, I'm so glad I did it
Mhm,
because it's like, it was basically, I had so many like medical issues from that I'd been struggling with for like, honestly, a decade plus
mhm,
before that and just tried to solve them with non-surgical stuff. But,
mhm,
um, ended up just being like, let's just solve the problem.
mhm,
And that's exactly what it did. It was like my surgeon was amazing and like there's so many complications that can happen with that surgery. So
mhm,
it was definitely scary going into it, especially being a singer,
mhm.
it's like that's right there,
Yeah,
you
yeah,
know, but yeah, it's been nothing but good. There's like a spot, like, parts of my face that are like slightly numb, but like
mm,
not anything really
gotcha,
noticeable.
gotcha. Because I had somebody on the podcast a while ago. They had gone through some jaw surgery, and they like, I mean, I guess it's a little bit different because they're still like within a year of the jaw surgery, and so there's like some stamina issues or some like motion with their jaw.
I will say I'm kind of still relearning my voice because the acoustics of my face are different now,
Mhm,
right? Like totally different. I go back and I listen to myself before and like I think it's way better because it's more like it's just more how, my face
mhm,
naturally developed if there hadn't been some bad orthodonture stuff going on. But um it's funny because I never used to like have to think about being on pitch before,
mhm,
just because like I don't know, I just sang my whole life and I just knew my voice well enough that I don't know, it was never something I had an issue with. And I'm still kind of learning post jaw surgery to like just kind of relearning how to sing a little bit, So there are moments when I like listen back to like, like a show I played recently where I'm like, oh my God, like that was not on pitch, but it's just, it's like, relearning to walk with like
yeah,
with like different, I don't know, different legs kind of
yeah.
feels like, you know.
Yeah, that makes 100% sense. And so did you, not to sit on this too long, but it's just always kind of interesting because it's like your voice is your instrument, and like messing with your jaw is like taking a trombone and just like trying to rearrange it, but still
Mhm.
expecting the same thing. Um, Did you end up having to take like vocal lessons after your surgery, or was it just kind of like I'll kind of teach myself?
Basically, I went back and like, I like did, exercises that, what, actually, maybe I did do some. I think I did do some actually. Yeah, I think I went back to my same vocal coach that I had
Mm,
like worked with before, but
gotcha.
yeah, that whole time is a little bit blurry for me.
Well, I
Maybe
mean, if they had you on pain meds, I 100% understand. Like,
oh,
yeah,
yeah. It's funny because I did a good clean sweep of watching a bunch of stuff on Netflix,
mm,
and I don't remember most of it.
yeah,
Like I know that I watched that show, but I don't remember what happened in it.
right, right, right.
Yeah.
I'm right there with you. I feel that. Oh, so so after the jaw surgery, that's when you kind of started releasing your music. You know, it's obviously that's a fun time just in general, just kind of starting to put out your own music. Would you say everything that's out now, so starting with your new song "Jokes on Me," um, you and USC, Next Crazy X, you know, just like all your songs, do you feel like this is the most accurate version of the type of music you want to be making, or are you still kind of ever evolving?
I would say it's definitely not. I've just sort of started working on, I mean, also Jokes on Me, I recorded before I even put out Next Crazy X and you and USC. So that was like, I think I recorded that in like summer of 2023. So, still that song is, a while ago, but, I've just, we're working on an EP right now. And so like that, I'm excited to have some more stuff out that's like, because those songs all feel like a side of my writing and,
Hmm.
an aside of me as an artist, but there's definitely like a lot of aspects that I look at it and like I have a little bit of like cognitive dissonance because I'm like, there's some parts of me that are not visible there, you know?
Hmm.
And yeah, so to answer your question with a very long-winded way of just saying no.
Sure. But you know what though? That's 100% fair because it's like I think a lot of musicians kind of they wait too long to put out music. They're waiting for for their sound to be perfect. They're waiting for them to be 100% happy and like, okay, yes, this is the sound. Like they almost have to have it figured out before they get music out. And
Mhm.
it's like, no, sometimes you just need to start getting music out so people A know you're releasing music and B, who knows? Like maybe people just start reacting to certain songs and you kind of know, okay, this isn't necessarily the sound I want to have, but maybe this is the subject matter I need to write about, you know, and just kind of figure out more ways to write about this subject matter.
Yeah, yeah. I think there's definitely some truth in that. I have always felt like there's definitely a tendency now, I think, for people to um self-edit less, maybe,
Hmm.
just like to just there's just a extreme saturation of just like a lot of people being like, oh, I don't know, maybe this will work, right?
Right.
It's like there's some value in that too. And I guess it's a different sort of a certain like attitude about your own creativity, which is like
Hmm.
I totally respect that. I think that's a really cool way to do it. For me, I think with my music, I'm glad that I waited because I think that I wasn't I don't know. I look back at songs that I was writing, a while ago, and I'm like, they're just objectively not as good as the songs that I
Hmm.
write now because it's just
Yeah.
I've had more practice.
Hmm.
I've spent one of the things for me that's changed in the past year and a half is like it took me a while to find the country music community in
Hmm.
LA, which is it's very much there. Like and now that, I found it a little over a year ago, it's like it's that's when LA started to feel, like home to me. And but before I had found that, I was sort of just like floating, around like trying to sort of place myself, um, I don't know, like just even physically place myself. That doesn't really, I don't know if that makes sense, but
Yeah.
I guess I
You're,
just, yeah, I wasn't around as many musicians either. So
mm,
I definitely have developed more of a, I studied music in college, but
mm,
there's something that you get from being around
be-
people who are professional musicians and have been playing gigs for
right.
as long as I've been alive. And, and like just being around that has made me a better musician and songwriter and stuff. So
Yeah.
I now I'm at the point where I'm starting to be like, okay, yeah, I want to like release a more quantity of,
Hmm.
of music because I feel like now part of the reason that the songs that I have up don't fully represent me is just because there's not enough of them.
Hmm.
There's, as people and artists, we have like enough sides. It's like you can't really represent that in 3 songs.
Right. Yeah, 100%. And, like, I think the idea of waiting until you find the community or um, find the support. That's the word I was looking for. I don't know why support just wasn't coming to my head. Finding the support is important because especially as you continue to grow in your music career and your musical aspirations, you're going to need that community for shows and all this stuff. And if you're just releasing music and you're kind of doing everything by yourself, that road to the road to the next level or wherever you want to go, it's going
Yeah.
to get very hard because you're
Yeah.
just doing your own thing, which there's nothing wrong with that. Like, I think everybody needs to be doing their own thing, but there's also something to be said for having that, at least having that support group of,
Hmm.
having 5, 6, 7, 10 people that are all doing their own thing. But it's like, hey, if I need somebody to bounce something off of, I can call John or Sally or Susie, or, like
Yeah.
whatever, and we can come together and be like, okay, I don't write country acoustic, like, but
Hmm.
I can help you kind of get to where you want to go, so just kind of having that community is important.
Yeah. Yeah. And also just, I very much during COVID, partly because of COVID, but
Mm,
partly because I hadn't found that community yet.
mm,
I was trying to do everything myself. And like the fact of the matter is that like as one single person, it would be very difficult, probably impossible, especially like, for me being, in my 20s, right? Like there hasn't been enough time in my life for me to be like to specialize in all these different things, right?
yeah.
Like we're not going to end up with the best outcome if I try to like play drums on this song. That's not going to be a good thing, you know? Like, and so having, being able to have people who are actually, that's their thing,
Hmm.
that thing is just always gonna, that's something that I've definitely really seen, a lot.
Right, 100%. So, um, so let's talk about your new single,
Mhm.
out now. Jokes on Me. If everybody wants to go listen to it, the link will be in the description. Go check it out after the podcast, and we'll make sure it's in the description below. So, what's the story behind this song?
Well, I wrote this song. It was, gosh, I was in that point, like getting over a breakup where you're kind of like, yeah, I'm over it. Like, it's all good. Like, if this person called me, I wouldn't pick up. No, not a chance. Like I'm not even tempted, not interested at all anymore. And I just sort of like had a moment where I was like, what would I actually do though? If this guy called me, would I actually not pick up?
Mhm.
If he was like, if he, basically this song is me imagining what would have happened. He didn't actually call me, which is probably a really good thing because that's, better left in the past of that one. But it was me kind of realizing, oh, like maybe I'm not as over it as I thought, like if he was like, hey, let's meet up for drinks, I was like, oh shoot, like I probably would fall for it, you know?
Yeah.
And it was like, and so then I was like, well, and I had the idea for the hook of it, that like the drink's on you, but the joke's on me. And I kind of just spent a lot of time just thinking about that idea and like picturing what would happen if, if this guy did reach out. And, during my just like days by myself, going on a run and, playing guitar, just sort of it just sort of marinated in my brain. And
Hmm.
eventually I ended up with this song. And I think I rewrote several different versions of it, but yeah, it was sort of an exercise in recognizing my own overconfidence in my being over a breakup, and um, sort of something for me to listen back to if he did end up calling, which I would hope that I would have listened to it and been like, let's not do that.
No, not at all.
Explore that option. Let's not do
Fair,
it.
fair, fair. And I think now that you're self-aware of that fact, it's like, okay, cool. Like,
Yeah.
if it does happen, we're not going to let it
Oh yeah.
happen. So,
Yeah. Oh, and like that breakup that was about is like so far in the past now that I'm like, if that guy called me, I'd be like, what? Like what? Like I'd probably almost like answer just out of curiosity and be like, hi, ghost from my past. Like,
right.
what's going on? Like, I have a boyfriend now who's, I've been with for a while, and I'm like, that
Yeah.
wouldn't even be a temptation, but it's like, yeah, it's funny as a songwriter. Sometimes, like I have in the past found myself, you know, in like a repeated theme kind of situation, right? With somebody different, and like gone back and like listened to a song that I've written and been like, oh, yeah, we've been here before. Like, okay, Piper, are we learning our lesson, or are we going to make the same mistake again? Like, you know, but
I mean, it it happens. I get it. I 100% get it.
oh,
So,
it does. It does. We often have to learn our lessons multiple times before they
oh,
actually stick.
100%, 100%. And so you had mentioned that you're currently working on a EP, right?
Yeah, that's I think what it's probably going to end up being. I mean, God, I have so many songs that I, just haven't recorded yet, or have recorded and, haven't put out, or am not sure I will. I've toyed with the idea of at some point doing sort of like some kind of like slightly retrospective EP of like old songs that I never put out.
Nice. Yeah.
But that would happen after the more current stuff.
Fair.
But yeah, I have a track list that I'm pretty sure about, and have just started recording some of those. So yeah, it's
Nice.
probably end up being an EP. Hopefully that will be happening very soon. I'm
Nice.
excited to have more out.
I dig it. I dig it. And then the idea of revisiting old songs that were never recorded. I tell everybody to do that. Like it's such a interesting thought experiment. Like even just I'm not saying go back to like when you first started songwriting and like, oh hey, let's release this song called Sunflowers and Dandelion, like
Yeah,
whatever you'd write about. But maybe go in there and see if there is like a little nugget of something to be like, okay, this song is trash, but this little line right here, that's kind of an interesting, like, where did 12-year-old Piper come up with this line? Like, what was, you know,
yeah,
I've always thought about just like revisiting those old ideas, and even if you just like rewrite the songs based on like a premise, I think that's really interesting. So
yeah. I mean, I even have songs that I recorded around the time that I recorded the first two singles that I put out, and
mhm.
that just don't feel current to me anymore. That like either, we like, we never, we recorded them but didn't mix them and like put the final, touches on them. And it's like, I do think it would be fun to release that kind of stuff at some point, along with probably, I don't know, just like some work tapes too, or like re-record, acoustic versions of a couple songs. I think I'd have to look back at it as like very much like frame it as a past version of me and sort of like some kind of,
Yeah.
like looking through the yearbook kind of exercise. Because it's like and I would want to feel like before doing that, like the answer to my question when you say, do you feel like the songs that you have out represent you?
Yeah.
I would want to be able to say yes to that before going back and putting out stuff that feels
Not like you.
true to a previous version of me that is very much not, me anymore. But yeah.
Right. Very fair. I do think that's what they made SoundCloud for. Like if in 2, 3 years where it's just like, yeah, let's throw this out on SoundCloud and see what happens,
Yeah.
So
Yeah, totally.
it's cool. Oh, so where are you kind of at show wise right now? Are you playing pretty consistently going into 2025 or where are you kind of at there?
Starting to play more often. I had, I played a release show for Jokes on Me this past Tuesday. Let's see, what's the date today?
The 16th.
Oh yeah, the 16th. I'm not playing anything this coming week because I actually don't know if I'm going to end up having to do jury duty.
Oh,
We'll find out. But who knows? Poor timing on that one, but yeah, I've got a show the week after that, and then going to be playing around in Nashville in the beginning of March. So I'm starting to go back and forth to there more often, and yeah, just kind of like ramping it up, and doing that. Sort of building up the frequency of that while also working on all the many, many other things there are to do, But yeah, yeah, it's been fun to play live more. I love playing live, and yeah.
Nice. So when you're not doing music or worrying about jury duty,
I don't spend too much time worrying about that. I'm more just, I'm like, okay, not going to think about that. Let's hope that doesn't happen. But okay, I guess if it happens, it does.
I remember the first time I got jury duty, I was like right in the middle of finals at school. No. And like I got the notice like the week before finals, and the day I had to go in was like right in the busiest day I had. I had like 4 finals on that day. And
yeah.
I called up the county clerk or whoever it was in Illinois, and I was like, "Hey, so I have finals that day, and like that is my literal busiest day. I have like 4 finals.
Yeah.
What can we do?" They're like, "Okay, we'll just cancel it and we'll reschedule you for a different time."
Yeah.
And then I ended up leaving Illinois, and so I was just kind of like, "Okay, I never got got that one." So yeah.
Yeah.
But so
sorry, I interrupted you. You were saying something. I don't remember what it was.
Oh no, you're fine. So what do you like to do in your spare time when you're not doing music?
I spend a lot of time around horses. I haven't been as much lately, partly because of horses being evacuated from fires and stuff like that. But I grew up around horses, and finding the like country music community in LA has also been really cool in that it's also connected to the horse community. And so it's been really fun to, do that more again, because I had a horse growing up, but not after I left for college. And so it's been really fun to, get back into that more frequently. So I do that. I run a lot. I still very much, I've been an athlete my whole life, and I very much like will go crazy if I don't work out almost every day. Right. So that takes up a good amount of time also. Yeah, I would say mainly horses and being physically active are kind of another place that I spend my time. I also, I love, just if I am not, doing one of my own shows or working on, a song or something, I also will go to, my friends' shows or, stuff like that and
Nice.
just go out and hang out and dance and yeah.
Nice. Who in LA are you really getting into right now? Like who's coming out of LA that you really like at the moment?
Oh gosh, so many. Um, I mean, too many to count. I mean, gosh, I mean, one of the people who comes to mind the most for me is one of my best friends who plays guitar for me, Jimmy Cormier. He's a great songwriter, and yeah, and also my boyfriend Rob Marshall. He has songs out that he put quite a bit out last year, and he's yeah. I love his stuff. Even I would even if I wasn't incredibly biased, on both of them and all my friends. It's crazy um how many great musicians there are that I'm like, how does everybody not know how great you are?
Right. Right.
But oh yeah, so many of my friends I could, of course, I'm thinking about who's put music out recently.
Like,
A friend of mine, Kaylin, she's been releasing some stuff
mhm.
lately, and she's fantastic. And
Nice. Yeah,
yeah,
that's really cool. It's always kind of interesting because when you think of like country music, obviously the first thing that comes to mind is like Nashville. Like everybody goes to Nashville and does the
yeah,
Nashville thing. But there's also you got like Texas has got its own really cool like country scene, and then LA's always kind of been the unspoken like hotbed for music. Like I mean, I feel like it's probably a little bit more pop driven. Like that's just kind of like my outside looking in. I feel like it's a little bit more pop driven in LA,
yeah,
but there's just so many cool bands that are in and around LA just because the like as much as the industry is in Nashville, it's just as much in LA too, you know?
yeah,
So
yeah, man. And and I think people often forget that like California has always been, part of country music,
yeah.
like, I mean, you think of Bakersfield and,
Mm-hmm.
you know, and I would say, it's been cool to see the country scene in LA even over the past year. Part of it I know is like just recovering from COVID,
Mm-hmm.
and I moved to LA like right before COVID happened. So I didn't really see what it was like before. But even in the past year and a half, it's like the way that it's been blossoming is really cool. And it's, I love Nashville. And it's been good to like start spending time more there again. But there's also something really cool about being here and just that with, what's happening in country music right now with like a lot more people starting to listen
Mm-hmm.
and just sort of seeing the way that's evolved. There's so much um, space to kind of still build the LA country scene into
Mm-hmm.
something. And like um, there's a lot of room to grow, which is really fun. And it's not so like set in exactly how
Yeah.
it's that it's like, yeah, there's a lot of cool stuff to be done and yeah.
100%. And like I keep talking about this this like touring highway that I see like just in my head I see this like vision of in 10-15 years people just leaving Nash or not leaving Nashville but coming from Nashville setting up tours coming through Texas and now even thinking about it you can cut all the way down to 10 and take 10 all the way out to Nashville and you're doing a cross country tour essentially like Nashville to LA, that's practically cross country at this point. And you've got probably 20 to 30 solid stopping points at anywhere from
Yeah.
Nashville to LA, and you're not
Yeah.
even getting off like a major, you're not taking like side roads, you're like staying on
Yeah.
40, 35 or 40,
Yeah.
30, 35, 20, 10. And
Mhm.
you're just like staying on major through roads,
Yeah.
and it's really cool. So
Yeah. Totally.
yeah.
Totally. There's so many things I'm so excited to, work on doing. And that is one of the things that I have actually been like, oh my God, I want to eventually do that.
Mhm.
That'd be a lot of fun.
Right. I did a cross country trip once, and the only reason it was a drag was because we didn't technically stop anywhere. Like like we didn't stop and sleep anywhere. Let me put it that way.
Yeah, that's a bit rough.
Right. I left from Tallahassee, Florida, and went to like northern Montana
Hmm.
by way. Like I came all the way out to New Mexico to pick up my friends, and we stopped in Salt Lake City, and then we went up to Montana and we did like acoustic sessions.
Yeah.
But at that time, we were all broke as shit, and so it was just kind of like, okay, we
Yeah.
can afford gas. If anybody needs to sleep, guess what? We're doing it in the car.
Yeah.
And so whoever's not
Yeah.
sleeping is driving,
Hmm.
except I did 90% of the driving. So for like 7 days
Oh
straight,
man.
I maybe got 3 or 4 hours of sleep.
Oh,
Yeah.
oh my God. That is That's quite a slog.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, I
Eh,
think it would be fun to do that loop down and then back up through Montana, Wyoming, stuff. That
yeah.
would yeah.
It, I've had this dream of doing multiple cross country trips. And like now that have this like live podcast thing that we do,
Mhm.
it's like all I've got to do is get my co-host to get away from his family for like 2 weeks.
Mhm.
But he's also got like 5 kids and a full-time job. So it's just kind of like,
Yeah.
that's not fair to his wife to be like, hey, I'm going to take your husband away for like two
Yeah,
weeks.
that's a long, yeah.
So
Yeah.
unless I can walk up to her and be like, here's 10 grand. I'm sorry. Just
Yeah.
like give her a big old lump of money.
Yeah,
I'm
exactly.
sure that would soften the blow a
Yeah,
little bit.
like win the lottery and then be like, here, you'll get part of
Right,
it.
right, right. So, but
Yeah,
no, we do smaller trips now, and it's fun. So, yeah, awesome.
amazing.
So kind of looking forward, the EP is just still kind of in the works. There's nothing like set in stone on that. It's just kind of a project at this point.
Yeah, it's an evolving project, and yeah, it's definitely not going to be another like over a year before I put out more music. I will say that for sure.
Fair,
There's stuff that I'm I'm hoping will be in the next, several months. So
fair,
yeah.
fair. I mean, worst case scenario, even if you just start putting out singles and it's just like,
Oh yeah,
yeah,
totally. And even if it is an EP, like with the way that sort of music is now, it's like drip releasing it as just singles, but as
mm,
part of as
mm,
part of an EP. I like the idea of having it end up as an EP because I group it that way in my mind, right? Like as a project, either an EP or an album, and I like very much, have a world that I'm living in and an idea that I'm trying to make happen
fair.
that to me is one thing, but releasing stuff as singles is kind of
Kind of
the thing to do.
right. But honestly, I think there's a community out there right now that just really loves full projects. Like for me, I love listening to albums. Like I just
Mhm.
like give me a vinyl and I'll throw it on.
Yeah.
Like I probably need to get a better vinyl player, but that's just because I'm cheap. And it's like, yeah, I'll pay $60 for a suitcase record player. When in reality, probably need to go buy something better.
My dad, for my graduation present, you can see right here, my dad
Yeah.
got me a like incredible sound system.
Mhm.
And um I so like it's been really fun to, have have like great sound to like listen to my, my own record collection and, stuff that my parents collected and stuff. And
Right.
yeah, I love that. Oh my God. I can't wait to like be at the point where I have my own stuff like physically on a record,
Mhm.
and be able to put it, on my record player. And like that's like having it physically in your hands is something that I'm like, I have not been able to do that yet. And I'm definitely excited to do that.
Oh yeah, for
That's
sure.
yeah.
Yeah. When my dad moved out of, so I'm originally from Chicago, and then when I went to college, my dad moved from Chicago. My dad and my mom moved from Chicago, and they went to South Florida. And my dad was just like going through some stuff, and he's like, "I'm gonna throw a lot of this away." And he had these two big tower speakers from like the 70s that like to this day there's nothing that sounds like it, and they're sitting like I'm looking at one here and then there's one sitting over here, and I'm like, oh, I cannot wait until I, because the issue is a lot of the receivers that I have aren't powerful enough for the speakers.
Okay. Yeah. Yeah.
Like they're just like, it's like a cheap receiver, and so it's just like I'll put the music in or I'll program something and it'll be like, oh, that sounds cool, but it's just not giving it enough. Like these speakers just have so much to give, and it's like maybe I just need to go spend this money. So
Yeah, yeah, worth it, honestly. I mean, I say that, but like, my setup was a gift, so it's not like I had
right,
to do that myself. But
right.
yeah, no, God, the stuff that from the older stuff is just so good.
Mhm.
God, yeah.
Yeah. And
My
my
my grandpa was an audiophile and had, a whole cool setup and so many records that ended up in like my grandparents' garage getting overheated and just
mhm,
totally warped or broke or just
mhm.
unusable. And I'm like, oh my God, I wish like some of the ones that my dad tells me about, I'm like, that, no.
Right, right, right. I remember as a kid, my mother gave me her vinyl player from the 60s. She had a vinyl player from the 60s that she kept. She gave it to me and we set it up in my room. We didn't have a needle, so it was just kind of more like
Yeah.
it was there. And she put all her records in like this little thing that she had. And I just remember seeing like Beatles albums and just like the original pressing of the Grease album, which was very random, and just like some of these really cool like things
Yeah.
that if you had like the original pressings now, we're talking like extremely valuable. So,
Oh yeah. No, that's cool. That's actually it's funny. That reminds me, the setup that my dad gave me is everything but the actual like record player, which was my mom's when she was in college. And so
mhm,
that's a fun, yeah.
nice.
Getting
And it's like one day they were moving and then they ended up selling everything, and my mom sold like a stack of 45s for like $20, and I'm just like
mom, no.
thinking back on it now, it's like,
Yeah.
oh, we probably just sold like $10,000 worth of stuff, right? Because she had like a giant stack of 45s, like it was just like like the CD binders, but it
Yeah.
was like a bindle of 45s, and I'm just sitting there, I'm like, looking back at it, and I'm like, I have no idea what was in there, but you got to imagine if it's from like the 60s
Oh
and
man.
70s, you know, there's something in there. So,
Yeah, for sure.
but it
Yeah.
is what it is. Um,
Sure
but
is.
um, but I don't want to keep you here too much longer. If anybody wants to check out your music, shows, social media, stuff like that, where can people find you?
Piper Leone, PiperLeone on everything. Yeah. So that's me on Spotify, Apple Music, Instagram, all the things is yeah. So
Nice. I dig it. I dig it. And then one thing that we like to do with everybody that comes on the podcast is we like to pass on a little bit of information for the young musicians. So what's a piece of advice you have?
I would say one of the biggest things that I would tell myself or somebody else, you know, as a young musician is probably spend time getting to know yourself. And that will be so valuable, because if you take that time, figure that out, and how to communicate that and figure out your voice, that's really one of the most valuable things that you can have. Because, you know, you can be a great songwriter all day, but if you don't have anything to say, and if you don't know what perspective you're writing from, and you haven't figured out what your voice is, you know, it's like you got the, you know, you can speak the language, but you don't have anything to communicate. And so I would say figure that out and take the time to, you know, specifically with songwriters, take the time to like actually, I mean, with anybody, but take the time to live your life, right? So that you actually both to get to know yourself, spend time around good music, be around people who are better than you know, like I'm like, I try to play with musicians who are better than me, and it always is like, and, you know, be inspired instead of threatened by that. And I would say, you know, those are two of the biggest things for me.
Right. And I think that's an important thing to pass on, because while yes, this is a music business, but that drive to improve yourself and learn from other people and just kind of be around the competition, or not, I don't want to say competition, but just kind of be around other musicians is what's going to make you a better musician.
Exactly. And it helps you figure out how you see yourself fitting into the broader picture of music and the world. And I think it would be hard to run, you know, to make good music, but also to make good business choices if you don't know those things, you know, if you're just trying to, because then and also then you might end up with people telling you who they think you should be, you know, and it's like, that was something I always wanted to make sure was like, who am I? How do I want to do things? What do I want to make, so that like I can stick with that and follow through on my own vision, rather than, you know, it become
100%
something else. Yeah.
Understood. So once again, thank you so much for joining us. It's been an absolute blast.
Thank you so much for having me. This has been talking to you.
Yeah, absolutely. And thank you everybody for tuning in. If you want to listen to Piper Leone's music, we will have it in the description below. We'll have the link to her Spotify, all that fun stuff. So make sure you go check out her music and be on the lookout for new stuff coming in 2025.
Love it. Yeah. Working on a lot of stuff. Thank you so much again.
Yeah, absolutely. And once again, thank you everybody for tuning in, and we will catch y'all later. Thank you so much for joining us on today's episode of Live and Amplified's Indie Fusion podcast. If you'd like to support anything Live and Amplified does, please follow us on all of our social media platforms at Live, the letter N, Amplified. You can find us on Facebook, Twitter, Twitch, Instagram, YouTube, Threads, any of them, all of them, at Live, the letter N, Amplified. And if you would like to buy any official Live and Amplified merch, you can do so at our merch shop, link in the description below. Once again, thank you all. Have a great day.